Womanjika. This is a word in the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung language meaning welcome. I am the Mayor, Councillor Bruce Lancashire. I declare this meeting open at 7 p.m. I would like to welcome members of the public who have joined us in the chamber tonight. Members of the public attending council and committee meetings are expected to behave respectfully at all times and not permitted to engage with the councillors or council officers during the course of the meeting. Officers are employees who have a right to be safe and treated with respect at their workplace. You may be asked to leave the meeting if your behaviour is considered inappropriate, disruptive or rude. We will not tolerate any behaviour that threatens the safety of anyone present in the chamber or which disrupts the ability for council to conduct its business on behalf of the community. In the unlikely event of an emergency, please follow the direction of council officers and the emergency procedures on the wall near the door. I would like to note that I have given approval for Channel 31 to live stream this meeting. A recording of the meeting will be published on Council's website. Please stand for the acknowledgement of country. On behalf of Brimbank City Council, I respectfully acknowledge and recognise the Wurundjeri and Bunurong peoples as the traditional custodians of this land and pay respect to their elders, past, present and future. I ask councillors to remain standing for the council commitment. Others may be seated. As the council, we will act in the best interest of the Brimbank community and consider the immediate and long-term impacts of our decisions. We will make these decisions fairly and without bias. We will uphold all of our obligations under the laws of Victoria and Council's local laws and will act in accordance with our code of conduct. Councillors, please be seated. Item 3, apologies, leave of absence. Councillor Sarah Brandon has submitted an apology for this meeting and Councillor Rassick is on a leave of absence. Item 4, disclosure of conflicts of interest. Are there any declarations of conflicts of interest?
Yes, Mayor. I, Tom Razmosky, Acting Director, City Futures, have a conflict of interest of item 16.3 of the agenda and as previously declared with the CEO.
Thank you. Item 5, designation of items as confidential. I have a motion up on the screen. Would someone like to move that motion?
I move the motion as per business papers.
Thank you, Councillor Papalia. Would someone like to second that motion?
I second.
All those in favour? Motion is passed. Item 6, confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. Motion is up on the screen. May I have a mover of motion to confirm the minutes of the previous council meetings?
I move the motion as per business papers, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. A seconder, Councillor Kerr.
Yeah, I second that as per the business papers.
All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. Item 7, condolences. There is one item of condolences this evening, the passing of Eva and Richard Kamiri. Could I have a mover of that motion, please?
I'll move that motion for the passing of Eva and Richard.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor David. Could I have a seconder of that motion? Councillor O'Reilly.
I'd like to second the motion as per the shared screen.
Thank you. Mover of the motion, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Eva and Richard Kameri, they were some of the first settlers in the pocket of Southwest Sunshine. Both Eva and Richard, they said about activate the whole new neighborhood, about Corroy Creek, and how they can perhaps involve the council to come aboard to beautify the area by cleaning the banks of the creek and planting trees. We organize dates so Eva can bring the neighborhood together for help. This eventually happened, and in conjunction with council, we had numerous of planting weekends where most of those trees are now surrounding the beautiful Buckingham Park. The cranberry rear fence was facing the creek, so they opened a gate for the morning walk. Along the way, Eva saw a lot of young people doing the wrong thing, and he was on the phone all the time to give him a call so I can report it. Eva was watching water birds and other wildlife dying on top of the lagoon in the creek. So we found out later on from the EPA when we alerted them that there was contamination water. That came about, and everything's clear now, and that happened during the time that there was a lot of industrial happening on top of the creek on the other side. Both husband and wife, Mr. Mayor, they have been very, very a tremendous dynamic couple in that area, which I believe was needed at the time to try and make that beautiful park now, the Buckingham Park, an iconic type of a park to come from people coming from everywhere at weekends, especially from other. I noticed people from Mooney Valley ones coming along to play with their children and everything else. As I said, dynamic couple, especially Eva, and for me and for council, condolences to the family, and Eva and Richard, let's hope they rest in peace. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor David. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think Councillor David summed it up pretty well. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Item 8. If I could just remind people in the gallery, there is to be no filming of the council meeting during the meeting. So please don't use your mobile phones for any filming, please. Item 8, congratulations. There is one item of congratulations this evening. Sustainability Victoria's Resourcement Schools Awards 2023. Mover of the motion.
I'd like to move the motion as per the shared screen, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. A seconder of the motion. Councillor Borg, second the motion.
I second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor O'Reilly, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to speak to the motion. I'd like to take this time to acknowledge RDS South Primary School in Sunshine West in Harvester Ward and Braybrook College in Braybrook along the border of Harvester Ward for receiving awards across various categories for Sustainability Victoria's Resource Smart Schools Awards 2023. Over Newton Anglican Community College in the northern part of Brimbank was also a finalist across various categories. I'd like to highlight RDS South, where students, staff and parents were behind the school's brand new urban forest, food producing garden and orchard, Lily Pilly Courtyard, community greenhouse and their beloved Hope Garden. These spaces were designed to improve students' wellbeing and local biodiversity. As the councillor holding the sustainability portfolio and one of the representatives on Brimbank's Youth Council, councillor representative, I believe it is important to highlight these awards that are recognising the local young people and schools that are leading the way on sustainability, creating real impact for Victorian communities beyond the gate. beyond the school gate. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Borg, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, I also want to congratulate the schools involved. I think they are doing a great job, and I believe that they are trailblazers who are leading the way in Victoria's transition to a circular, climate resilient economy. I know how much creativity there is involved and how much hard work involved. So congratulations to all the schools, to all the schools involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. Item 9, public question time. Ms Blatchford, I understand we have received questions from members of the public.
Yes, Mayor. First question this evening is from Catherine McDonald. In 2021-2022, the Brimbank Council recommended the appointment of a curator for the HV Mackay Gardens, which it has subsequently done. Can Council provide a job description for the position of garden curator for the Mackay Gardens?
Thank you. A specific PD was not created for a curator for HV Mackay Gardens, as a curator alone would not be sufficient to manage the gardens to the level it is currently maintained. Council appointed a qualified gardener in 2021-22. This position was responsible for maintenance of garden areas within the Sunshine area, including HV Mackay Gardens. Council currently also has 2 qualified gardeners and an apprentice attending to the gardens 3 to 4 days a week as part of their scheduled maintenance for the area. Staff working in the gardens are required to demonstrate recent experience in heritage, botanical, horticulture, or parks and gardens experience. They are also required to maintain a high degree of technical and practical knowledge.
Second question this evening from Catherine McDonald. Can Council advise if, and if so, how and when the position of garden curator was advertised?
When advertising for the positions to fill a number of park services roles, these are advertised externally. Staff with the most relevant experience in working with historical gardens were appointed and assigned to work on the HV Mackay Gardens.
Third question this evening from Graham Blaw. We have seen little to no progress or support from the Andrews government for a revamp of our hopelessly updated and inefficient bus service to residents of the West. In light of this and the practical suggestions by Dr. Johnstone's team for a radical revamp, will Council undertake to further escalate advocacy on behalf of the whole community to address this glaring shortfall in service provision?
Thank you. Council's Transport for Priorities Paper 2022 demonstrates the need for improvements to the bus network, including setting out a number of priorities for bus improvements. Council continues to advocate for bus reforms in the West. Most recently, at the Council meeting of the 20th of June 2023, Council resolved to write to the Honourable Ben Carroll MP to request that the Better Bus Plan is prioritised for the West. This letter has been sent under the Mayor's signature. Council will continue to advocate for improvements to public transport, including buses across Brimbank and the West.
Second question from Graham Blaw. Given Brimbank's massive shortfall in tree canopy cover, particularly in light of the upcoming predicted very hot summer to come, what urgent steps is Council taking to address this potentially life-threatening issue?
Council adopted an urban forest strategy in 2016 with the aim to increase tree canopy cover from 6.2% to 30% by 2026. Council has planted extensively in streets and parks, planting around 300,000 trees over the last 10 years, and the tree canopy cover is increasing. Council plans to measure tree canopy cover in early 2024. Council invests around $2 million annually to plant semi-mature trees in streets and has successfully received funding from state and federal governments to significantly increase tube stock trees in parks. Noting Council also needs to address the reduction in tree canopy through removal due to development and new infrastructure, Council adopted the Brimbank tree policy and significant tree policy in 2021. These policies seek to protect trees on public and private land due to their benefit in mitigating the impacts of heat waves, for reducing carbon monoxide, and improving air quality and supporting the health and well-being of all Brimbank residents.
Question from Kelvin Granger and Dean Hurlston. Can Council please advise the dollar amount of cost shifting from state government they estimate they incurred in the 2022 to 23 financial year?
Thank you. Council has not quantified the amount of cost shifting that has occurred during the past financial year, but there are many examples where the level of funding to councils has reduced significantly over the years. Maternal and child health and libraries are two programs where the level of funding has declined over the years, and future funding is not keeping up with the increasing costs of council providing these services. The Maternal and Child Health Service is supposed to be a 50-50 cost-shared program between the state government and councils. Brimbank currently contributes around 60% of funding for this program.
Sorry, Mayor, have you got that one?
Missed it.
Yeah.
It has been reported that in 1975, public libraries were funded 50-50 by the state government and local government. Funding for libraries has declined significantly, and council now contribute over 80% of the funding for the operation of our libraries. There has also been a significant decline in financial assistance grants provided by the federal government. Financial assistance grants were at one stage 1% of total Commonwealth tax revenue. The grants are now approximately 0.55% of Commonwealth tax revenue. Council continues to contribute for funding for all these areas to be increased.
Question this evening from Jenny Isom. Could Council please advise how much Council paid deliberately engaging the consultation group formed for the Brimbank Community Voice, and how long this private consultation company will engage with the community?
Thank you. Council deliberately engaging in February 2023 following a request for quote process to establish Brimbank's first cross-representational community panel, Brimbank Community Voice. In addition to co-designing and recruitment process, deliberately engaging was also responsible for management and client support through the recruitment process, member registration and support, confirmation of participation, introductory webinars, recruitment evaluation report. Following the recruitment and onboarding processes, which ended in June 2023, deliberately engaging is currently being retained on a month-to-month basis to assist with ongoing management of newsletters, member emails, expressions of interest for participation in panel activities, and randomised selection of member participation. In accordance with our procurement policy, we must protect the commercial interests of suppliers and are therefore unable to release commercially sensitive information, including price. The contract amount with deliberately engaging was within the operational budget.
Second question this evening from Jenny Isa. What is the sole purpose of deliberately engaging? From the onset, it appears it wants to engage with community. Isn't that what we pay our councillors to do, engage with the community? And could council make do with less ratepayers' money being wasted with a task that is meant for our local councillors?
Thank you. Deliberately Engaging is an external consultancy recognised as experts in recruiting and managing panels such as Brimbank Community Voice. Deliberately Engaging has worked with multiple councils on similar projects and processes. Their role is to help facilitate effective recruitment and engagement with panel members by council. Now that panel members have been recruited, deliberately engaging will provide a single point of contact between Brimbank Community Voice members and various parts of council. Having a consultant in place to help manage the panel will ensure panel selection for specific consultations remains fair and impartial. Council officers cannot request specific members be included or excluded from an activity. In addition, deliberately engaging will distribute regular communications with Brimbank Community Voice members, as well as co-coordinating member input to various engagement opportunities. The information gathered through the engagement undertaken with panel members via council staff will help inform service design and delivery and decision making by the elected council. Councillors continue to engage with community members on a regular basis through a myriad of topics. This is usually done one-on-one or in small groups. Council officers consult with community on many matters throughout the course of a year to undertake research and to better understand community needs, wants, and opinions. This helps to inform planning and recommendations made to the elected council for consideration and decision making.
Question this evening from Shona McMahon. Could you please inform the residents of Brimbank Council of how many facial recognition cameras there is in our area, the cost, and why you purchase them without consultations?
Thank you. Council has not purchased any facial recognition cameras.
Second question this evening from Shona. Oh, okay. 15 minutes. You need a motion to extend question time?
We have now
Oh, sorry, we've got 5 minutes.
we have now exceeded the time for question.
5 more minutes,
Sorry, 5
5
minutes.
minutes. Sorry about that, folks. Shona McMahon's second question is, will you consulting with the public before making further plans about LGBTIQA+ plans, and how will this be done?
Thank you. Draft LGBTQIA+ Action Plan 2023-2027 was endorsed for a 4-week community consultation period. All feedback is being received through the online Your Say website.
Question this evening from Kim Cullen. My first question is in regard to the answering of questions put to the Brimbank Council. I have spoken to quite a few fellow community members, and they too have not had answers to their questions. We need to be heard and understood. Last month I asked 2 questions and neither were answered to my satisfaction. I am asking these questions again and would like specific answers, not some pro forma public relations answer that is provided so the council appears to understand the issues and the potential ramifications of this LGBTQI+ action plan being implemented and going ahead. How do the Brimbank councillors aim to protect children from being unduly influenced by having sexually explicit messages that encourage children to be part of the Pride Parade, wave the rainbow flag and attend drag queen story time in our libraries, and all the other implications implicit in the promotion of the LGBTQ gender ideology agenda?
Thank you. The draft LGBTQIA+ action plan worked towards Council's commitment to support the Brimbank community at all stages of life, and this includes creating a safe, inclusive community that values and celebrates diversity in sexuality, gender, age, ethnicity, faith, culture, and or disability. Brimbank councillors, council staff, and volunteers have obligations under the Brimbank Child Safe Standards Policy. This policy is an overarching policy that guides Council's commitment to child safety and Council's approach to creating a child-safe organisation that is complicit with the Victorian Child Safe Standards. Sexually explicit messages are never used to communicate with or encourage children to be part of council programs.
Second question this evening from Kim Cullen. My second question addresses the public consultations that are to be held. Last council meeting, I asked this question, was told that the community was being asked feedback on the LGBTQI+ action plan. My question was how the community was being made aware of this so they know they can express their opinion on this issue. We did not receive an answer on this, so a number of local community members have been getting petition signatures to make people aware of this action plan. So far, out of more than 40 people who signed the petition, there are only a few who were of the action plan, and every single person we spoke to disagreed and signed the petition. Once again, I ask, how is the Brimbank Council is promoting the action plan to the community to ensure the feedback necessary to determine if this is in fact a plan the community endorses or not? Please be specific, i.e. has a newsletter being sent to residents, any radio announcements, public billboards, etc.
Thank you. I note we have now exceeded our 15 minutes question time. Can I have a... Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Nguyen.
Second that.
Thank you. All those in favour of extending the question time? Thank you.
15 minutes. 15 minutes.
Thank you. The question has been read. I will now respond to that question. The draft LGBTQIA+ Action Plan 2023 was endorsed for a 4-week community consultation period and has been promoted through the following: social media posts, including Brimbank Youth Services and neighbourhood houses. Posters and postcards have been distributed to council facilities across the municipality. Service providers and community networks have also shared this information. The Victoria Pride Centre is currently promoting the Your Say link and QR code through their website. Council's media release and news from the Chamber, the Star Weekly also noted Your Say page on the 21st of June edition. And that's the reference there is brimbank.northwest.star-weekly.com.au/resident-s-object-2-lgbt2IA-action-plan/. All feedback being received through the online Your Say website. Thank you.
We have a question tonight from Shannon Milak. In line with Brimbank City Council's Governance Rules 57.14, I do not consent to any part of my question being admitted, as I have complied with the governance rules as written. To omit any part of this question would be in direct contravention of this rule. As the 2 questions I submitted to Brimbank City Council's public question time for last month's meeting had significant parts of them omitted and therefore the governance rules were breached, will you now read my questions in full so that both my questions and Council's answers will be on the public record? Should you no longer have a copy of my original questions as submitted, I will be happy to provide them to you again.
Thank you. In accordance with the Brimbank Governance Rules section 57.14, all questions and answers must be as brief as possible. We do not consider that there has been a breach of the governance rules in this instance. We will further provide a written response to your original questions and provide an opportunity for you to log a complaint.
Second question this evening from Shannon Milak. In line with Brimbank City Council's governance rules, I do not consent to any part of my question being omitted, as I have complied with the governance rules as written, and to omit any part of this would be in direct contravention of this rule. Brimbank City Council's new draft governance rules have been revised to allow for an omission of any part of a question submitted to public question time that Council chooses. This is an affront to our democracy and directly works to silence Brimbank residents and any grievance or concern about Council that residents raise. As such, I ask all councillors here today to not be complicate in this change and to object to 55.16 of Brimbank's new proposed governance rules being passed on August 22nd. Will Brimbank City Council explain why they have made this change in the draft governance rules?
Thank you. I understand that you have made a submission as part of the community consultation of the Governance Rules 2023. Councillors will consider the officer report, including community feedback, at the council meeting in August, including any proposed changes in response to feedback from the community. Following this, an FAQ sheet will be developed by officers to provide community with more information on how to interpret the governance rules in response to public questions. So that's it. That's the end of questions. Item 10, petitions. There are no petitions to be received. Item 11, minutes reports of delegated committees. May I have a mover of a motion to note the minutes of the Lead West Joint Delegated Committee? Councillor Papalia.
I move the motion as per shared screen.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Borg.
I'll second the motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll move the motion. All those in favour? Motion carried. I now move to officer reports. There are 11 officer reports for consideration by council tonight. Councillors, if you have an alternative or amended motions this evening, you must draft these motions and provide to the governance team via email so that they may be shared on screen and form part of the meeting. Otherwise, we may have to defer the matter until the motion has been written, allowing the meeting to proceed uninterrupted. Item 12.1, Planning Activity Update and Delegate Decisions and Planning Scheme Amendments Update, June 2023, Planning Activity Update and Delegate Decisions and Planning Scheme Amendments Update, June 23. Mr. Romofsky, would you like to speak to this, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide the following: the status of planning permit applications and trends in planning approvals in Brimbank, decisions made under delegated authority in June 2023 regarding planning permit applications and other matters, the status of current planning scheme amendments at 30 June 2023. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have a question of Mr. Romofsky? Do I have a mover of the motion? Councillor Nguyen.
I'd like to move that, thank you.
Thank you. Seconder of the
As per
motion,
business papers.
Councillor Kerr.
I second the motion as per the business papers. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Do we? Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor
No.
Nguyen? Councillor Kerr, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. Item 12.2, Planning Compliance Activity Update, 1st of April to the 30th of June 2023. Mr. Romofsky, would you like to speak to the...
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
report?
Yep.
Thanks.
As mentioned, this is for council to note the planning compliance activity update for the period 1st of April to 30 June 2023. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions of that report? Thank you. Could I have a mover of the motion, please? Councillor Borg.
I'll move the motion as per shared screen.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder of that motion? Councillor Papalia.
I second the motion as per shared screen.
Thank you. Councillor Borg, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor
No, thank you.
Papalia. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? All those in favour of the motion? Motion carried. Item 12.3, Heritage Advisory Committee Update. Mr. Romofsky, would you like to speak to the report, please?
Thank you, ma'am. This report is to provide council for an update on the Heritage Advisory Committee and to consider the revised Brimbank Heritage Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Romofsky? No? Would someone like to, Councillor Tarkos, would you like to move the motion?
I move the motion as per business papers. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Borg?
I'll second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Tarkos, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you. Yes, just to say that this is just really the description of the terms of reference. And also it is a little bit disappointing that we don't have a St Albans Historical Society representative at this present time. However, if someone does, as we know, St Albans has got a very rich heritage history, but hopefully in the next few months someone puts their hands up to be a representative. We will certainly consider them as part of this Heritage Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Borg, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report has identified the need to revise the Brimbank Heritage Advisory Committee terms of reference, which Council adopted on the 23rd of June 2022. This is because Council did not receive any applications from the community when it sought expressions of interest to the committee for a 4-week period. The fact that there are 3 vacant positions, and one of them has been mentioned by Councillor Tarkos, poses challenges in meeting a quorum according to the current terms of reference. Hence, there is a need to revise the current terms of reference. This revised draft has reduced the community membership categories to 5 and reduced the quorum to 4 members. Considering the circumstances, it is important for Council to adopt this report, including the revised draft Brimbank Heritage Advisory Committee terms of reference. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to this report? All those in favour of the report, the recommendation? Thank you. The report's adopted. 12.4, return of supplementary valuations. Mr. Maher, would you like to speak to this report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider the supplementary valuations carried out from the 1st of July 2022 to the 30th of June 2023 in accordance with the Valuation of Land Act 1960. When a property has undergone a change that affects the property's value, a supplementary valuation is required. These changes are caused principally by the creation of new lots by subdivision, building construction or demolition, or the consolidation of property. It is recommended that Council adopts the supplementary valuations report. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Maher? Could I have a mover of the motion, please? Councillor Kerr.
I move the motion as per the shared screen.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder?
Second,
Councillor
Mr. Mayor.
David. Thank you. Councillor Kerr, do you wish to speak to the report? Councillor David, do you wish to speak to the report?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the report? All those in favour of the recommendation? Recommendation is carried. Return 12.5, return of general valuation 2023. Mr. Maher, could you speak to the report, thanks?
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider the 2023 general valuation of all rateable and non-rateable properties within Brimbank. The general valuation is undertaken in accordance with the requirements of the Valuation and Land Act and the Local Government Act. The general valuation process was undertaken in accordance with the Valuation and Best Practice Guidelines. It is recommended that Council adopts the return of general valuation 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maher. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Maher? Could I have a mover of the report? Thanks. Councillor Borg.
I'll move the report as per business papers.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder of the motion?
I second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Councillor Borg, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The general valuation 2023 for all rateable and non-rateable properties involved a four-staged process which commenced in July 2022. This process identified 80,443 rateable asset assessments and 1,705 non-rateable assessments. Council adopted the Capital Improved Value Strategy as a method to evaluate the properties in the municipality. This is in accordance with the section 157 of the Act. It is also considered the most equitable distribution of rates across the municipality. The report shows that there are an additional 663 properties becoming subject to rates. Mr. Mayor, I would like to mention that although the residential property prices have slightly decreased in the current revaluation year, many ratepayers are undergoing a lot of financial stress and are finding it very hard to keep up with the payments. I would like to take this opportunity to remind the community that Council provides support through the hardship policy, and the plan can be provided on the best way to pay the rates. I commend this report to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Bob. Councillor Targos, do you wish to speak to the motion? Does anyone else? Councillor Nguyen, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I think we just need to update the year to 2023 for the purpose, and happy to move that.
Sorry, Mr. Maher, would you like to restate the purpose? Thanks.
It's just that the year needs to be updated to 2023.
Yeah, noted. We'll pick that up in the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone else wish to speak to the report? Could I have a mover of the motion, please? Sorry. We've already done that. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion carried. Governance report, item 12.6. Ms. Hill, would you like to speak to the report? Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The governance report is a standing report within the council meeting agenda. It's predominantly a summary of key operational and governance activity written in accordance with the Local Government Act 1989 and 2020. In this month's report, council is recommended to note the report, note the contracts entered into and works orders approved in accordance with the S5 instrument of subdelegation, endorse the draft place naming policy 2023 to be released for community consultation for a 3-week period, and receive a further report following the consultation period. Note the record of informal meetings of councillors, delegates and representative reports, and councillors' declarations of representations by members of Parliament for incorporation in the minutes of the meeting. Notes the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 26th of May 2023. Note and endorse 2 submissions, including to the Federal Government Infrastructure Investment Program Strategic Review and the submission into the Parliamentary Inquiry into the regulation of gambling and liquor harm caused by gambling. Adopts a privacy and health information policy and approves the remuneration increase of the Audit and Risk Committee Chair and independent members. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Does anyone have any questions of Ms. Hill? Thank you. Could I have a mover of the motion, please? Councillor Tarkos.
I move the motion as per business papers. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder of the motion? Councillor Papalia.
Second the motion as per business papers.
Thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Tarkos?
Thank you. Just briefly, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to congratulate the Governance Department for the 2 submissions, especially the one in regards to the federal government's withdrawal of federal funding to support the SRL, which will jeopardise Sunshine's development and our pipeline. And as we know, as a council, we've been working for over 6 to 7 years on this generational opportunity of investment into the Sunshine Precinct, and to have this watered down to almost paused, I guess is the word, is going to affect our vision for our city, and not only that, the potential of investors who are, we're very poised to invest in our community on the basis that we would have the MAR. The other submission that I'd like to talk to is the parliamentary inquiry into the Victorian Auditor's General Report regarding gambling and liquor and the reduction of harm. We've been advocating now for many years on the harms of gambling, and I think finally the government is starting to listen, although I will talk later about my thoughts and also some things that should still remain funded within the harm minimisation area. However, it is very positive that the government on Sunday night announced a tranche of reforms. They don't go as far as I believe they should go, because we still remain the second most disadvantaged LGA in Victoria, and it's not an accident that the highest amount of EGMs are in the poorest postcodes and create generational poverty. So I commend the Governance Department for doing both of those excellent submissions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Councillor Papalia, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I too would like to commend the Governance Department for the work that they have done, particularly this last month in advocacy, giving councillors the opportunities. We met with over 6 MPs last month and discussed important items for Brimbank, including the Melbourne Airport third runway, the Melbourne Airport Rail Link, Calder Freeway. We've got the federal government infrastructure review and many other items. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to this item? Thank you. I'll move the motion. All those in favour? Motion is carried. 12.7 Draft Sports Facility Development Plan 2023 Update. Mr. Fleming.
Thank you, Mayor. The report is presented to Council to consider endorsing the Draft Sports Facility Development Plan, the Plan 2023, for a period for community consultation. The plan contains a comprehensive and up-to-date account of all sports participation and facility needs of the Brimbank community over the next 10 years. The plan maintains a focus on high-level social and health outcomes. It aims to support participation in physical activity by improving the access, provision and promotion of sport and recreation facilities within Brimbank. Following community consultation, all feedback will be considered with the final draft plan presented to Council later in 2023.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, Mr. Fleming? Thank you. Do we have a mover of the motion? Councillor Kerr.
I move the motion as per the business papers. Thank you.
Thank you. A seconder, Councillor Tarkos. Councillor Kerr, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, I'd just like to say that I can vouch and endorse this plan, and it was constructed in a fair and equitable manner. I urge all community members, clubs and members to provide your feedback during the community consultation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tarkos, do you wish to speak to this report?
I agree with Councillor Kerr. I think this draft plan is a really big piece of amazing work that is all evidence-based. And it's good that it's regularly updated to reflect the trends and needs of our changing and diverse community. It's an opportunity for our community also to engage and have their say on how we address the current sporting trends and needs using key principles like affordability, flexibility, being equitable in usage also. Our sports pavilions, when we arrived at council after administration in 2016, were pretty much run down and reaching the end of their lifespan. It's elected councillors that prioritise the revival and refurbishment and reconstruction of many ageing sports infrastructure so that it is responsive to our community and also creates a sense of pride in our community when our kids play sport. We still have a long way to go. Grants are shrinking or going to growing councils, meaning we still have a lot to do with much less funding and building and construction costs, as we know, are skyrocketing. Irrespective of this, this council is committed and will continue to provide the best it can, as well as optimise what we already have to improve health and wellbeing outcomes for our growing population. We can't build fast enough, as the demand, as we've seen in the new Bourke facility, has outstripped our supply. Hence, we are looking at partnerships also with schools, with universities and other local organisations to fill the gaps in our need for more sports facility space. I commend this, and there's a long list in there of all the facilities, and it's an interesting read, but it is very important that our community has its say on this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Councillor Borg, would you like to speak to this motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also would like to echo what my fellow councillors have said. Sports plays a critical role in the well-being and the subsequent thriving of the community, and council recognises that. Provision of facilities for people of all ages and capabilities is paramount. So is gender equality and diversity. The sports facility development plan, which was adopted by council in 2012, was updated in 2016 and again in 2018. The community has been asking for another update to reflect the changing trends and needs of the community. Extensive work has been going on for these last few years in preparation of the draft presented to council for endorsement, including but not limited to extensive community and sports clubs consultation. This is a comprehensive report which includes an up-to-date account of sports participation and facility needs of the Brimbank community over the next 10 years. As councillors, we had briefings and robust discussions to make sure that we give the community a voice on the basis of what we have been hearing from the community since the last update. The draft will be available for community's consultation, and I will be very much looking forward to the community's input. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Borg. Does anyone else wish to speak to this motion? Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry. I support the draft sports facility development plan update being approved for community consultation, as it provides guidance for strategic direction for the investment of council funds into sporting infrastructure in a fair and equitable manner. The new plan considers the sporting trends and sports infrastructure needs of the Brimbank community and presents strategies to meet these needs over the next 10 years. The current plan was adopted in 2018. As such, it is timely to update the plan to ensure the evolving sporting needs of the Brimbank community are met. I echo what Councillor Bork, Councillor Tarchos and Councillor Kerr have said regarding the plan. I was pleased to see the future action section of the report suggesting council should continue with planning for a range of sporting activities, including an indoor stadium to meet the future needs of the Brimbank community, actively pursue partnerships with local schools, other organisations and neighbouring municipalities for future development of sports facilities, partner with the education and private sector and work with local schools and private sector to negotiate increased community access to existing indoor courts at schools and private facilities. I know that residents have contacted me due to a lack of access to indoor spaces in the southern half of Brimbank, so it is timely to have this report come to council. In conclusion, I support gaining valuable feedback on the draft 2023 plan from the community and look forward to a further report with the final draft being presented to council later in the year for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Reilly, does anyone else wish to speak to this report? All those in favour? The recommendation is adopted. 12.8, renaming Sydenham Park update. Mr. Fleming.
Thank you, Mayor. This report is presented to Council to consider endorsement of the proposed consultation process required to rename Sydenham Park. At the Council meeting held on 19th of July 2022, Council considered a notice of motion regarding changing the name of Sydenham Park to an appropriate Aboriginal name suggested by Aboriginal groups. After consultation with the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung Cultural Heritage Aboriginal Corporation and Geographic Places Names Victoria, it is proposed, subject to council endorsement, that council will present a short list of Woi-wurrung names for community consultation in November 2023. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Fleming? Would someone like to move the motion?
Sorry, I move the motion as per business papers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Do we have a seconder of the motion? Councillor Papalia?
Yes, I second the motion as per shared screen.
Thank you. Councillor Tarkos, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Firstly, I'd like to thank Council for this update and keeping us in the loop in regards to the process. I respect that there is a Wurundjeri defined process. I look forward to the shortlist of the Indigenous names and ones that reflect the unique significance and the history of Jackson's Creek and Deep Creek meeting at the confluence, which people will find out that that's where the Maribyrnong River or the old Saltwater River actually starts in Sydenham Park. I don't believe Sydenham Park really reflects accurately the spiritual significance of the area, so I think this is a very appropriate process to give it some meaning and significance. So I look forward also in engaging in September when we officially launch Sydenham Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Councillor Papalia, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Only just to say I also look forward to receiving the short list of names and welcome the renaming. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. We have three contracts, 12.9, 12.10, 12.11. Mr. Levers, would you be able to speak to all three of those contracts, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The first report, 12.9, is a report seeking endorsement for the appointment of 3 contractors to a panel for the provision of electrical services for a period of 3 years with an option of a 2-year extension. Officers are recommending 3 contractors be appointed to this panel. If appointed, works would be conducted under a schedule of rates contract according to the works required. As a panel, no works or value is guaranteed, but the contractors have provided rates for the tendered services. The tenderers recommended have been assessed against the criteria and determined to be competent and offer best value to council. The second of the 3 reports is seeking endorsement for the extension of an existing contract for cleaning of council buildings for an additional 2-year period, and that's with Osbright Facilities Management. Officers are satisfied with the performance of the current contractor and believe the contract offers good value. The contract includes a lump sum for specified services and schedule of rates for any additional services required throughout the contract term. The third report, Mayor, is for the provision of stormwater drainage services and seeking endorsement for an additional 2-year period on an existing contract. The existing contract's with Total Drain Group, and we're seeking council's approval to award that to Environmental Services Group, who have been acquired by Total Drain Group. And as a result, the contract would be novated subject to council's approval. This contract is a schedule of rates contract. It includes provision of stormwater drainage services, including cleaning, closed circuit TV inspections, asset inventory and condition reporting for council's stormwater drainage network. And again, officers are satisfied with the performance of the current contractor and believe the contract offers good value to council and believe that Total Drain Group Environmental can continue to deliver services at value for council.
Thank you, Mr. Levers. Does anyone have any question of Mr. Levers on any of those 3 contracts? Could I have a mover of the motion, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move a motion that the 12.9 9, 12.10 and 12.11 be moved as a block. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Papalia, do I have
As per officer recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Papalia. Do I have a seconder? Councillor
I'd like to
David?
second that, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Papalia, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Councillor David, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? All those in favour of the motion? Motion carried. Item 13, notices of motion. There are 5 notices of motion. 13.1, ongoing funding for Victorian Responsible Gambling Foundation. Notice of motion 19/23. Councillor Tarkos.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the motion as per shared screen. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder of that motion?
I second that motion as per the shared screen.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Tarkos, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to, whilst I welcome the long-awaited gambling reforms announced late Sunday night, they are simply not enough. The LGA of Brimbank has hemorrhaged gambling losses and remains to be the highest losers in gambling losses and the second most disadvantaged, with the greatest losses recorded for the last decade. The losses of those who can least afford them, creating generational poverty, mental health distress, crime, money laundering, exploitation, drug use, homelessness, child poverty, and in many cases where people can find no way out, suicide. So it is heartening to finally see some reforms come to surface, but very little details still exist on how and when they will be implemented. And with the lobby group, the pubs and clubs already talking about compensation, will they be watered down? No one really knows. This motion goes to the heart of the matter. The VRGF, Victorian Responsible Gambling Foundation, is a statutory body that's there to support people and provide programs for people affected by gambling and gambling harm. Yet its ongoing funding is up in the air. I hate the word problem gambler. It's putting the onus back on people as if it's their fault. But the proximity of these harmful machines to the poorest postcodes in Brimbank is no accident. The VRGF is the one statutory body that's created by the Victorian Parliament, no less, to address the harms of gambling in Victoria. Now is under threat by this government. I plead with my fellow councillors to support this notice of motion, because it's these kind of statutory bodies that support programs like Libraries After Dark, Gamblers Problem Helpline, and a whole lot of other important programs and support. To not give this statutory body the security of funding is again throwing the light on how much longer can this harm go on. We need strong statutory bodies that will fight and support and reduce the harms of gambling. So thank you, councillors. Please support this notice of motion.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Sorry, Councillor Tarkos. Councillor Kerr, would you like to speak to the motion?
Well, firstly, I just want to congratulate Councillor Tarkos for being a staunch advocate against the harm of gambling in Brimbank. She has worked tirelessly, and I feel like we're just a broken record over and over and over again, trying to express our view to the state government that Brimbank is on its knees. Our residents are on their knees. We need help. We need to stop this gambling epidemic in Brimbank. So I just want to congratulate Virginia Tarkos for continuing to take on this issue and call on our local MPs to advocate for our community, for the most vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Would anyone else like to speak to this motion? All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. 13.2, Vietnamese bilingual kinder program in Brimbank. Notice of motion 20/23, councillor Tui Dang.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the notice of motion at per share screen. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder of that motion? Councillor Nguyen.
Also support that, second that.
Councillor Dang, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
Yes, please. Councillor, we are living in a diversity of community. We promote cultural pride and celebrate our diversity. So I believe we understand well how important it is for the children to know their mother tongue. It is the language that they first learn, and it is the language that they are most comfortable with. It is also the language that their parents and their grandparents speak. So it is important for the children to be able to communicate with them in their native language. Education experts have found that there are many benefits to children learning in another language at a young age, including boost their problem solving, increase pre-reading and pre-writing skills, improve self-esteem and well-being, widen their cultural understanding, make meaningful connection, etc. So in short, learning a first language other than English helps children to improve their overall literacy skills and understanding of how language in general works. And based on the data that was provided by Director Lindley Dumbo and the team, kindergarten in Brimbank have a large number of 348 children registered where their parents' primary language is Vietnamese, and 362 registered where the primary carer was born in Vietnam. And the Victorian government have invested $53.8 million to help preschool children learn in a language other than English at kindergarten from 2019 to 2027. So, councillors, I strongly call for your support to endorse a Vietnamese bilingual kindergarten program in Brimbank. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dang. Councillor Nguyen, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I think Councillor Dang did a fantastic job speaking about the notice of motion. I totally support that. As you can see, I think Brimbank has a very diverse community, and yes, it's many languages that would be great other than English to be spoken and learned, and what a better time when a child is in their formative years. And this is just one language, but it's a great example of how councils can work together with different levels of government to support the future generations in our country to not just improve their linguistic skills, but to also connect with different generations in the community, but also around the world. I mean, that's definitely a program I would have loved to have had as a child. But yeah, this is fantastic. I would so support it. Yeah.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to? Councillor Borg, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to endorse and echo what my fellow councillors have mentioned. Preschool, such as kindergarten, plays a significant role in the child's cognitive, emotional, and social development. Children who attend kindergarten are better equipped with learning skills when they start school. All children need to be provided with the opportunity to attend kindergarten irrespective of their ethnicity. It's important to address these barriers and find ways to overcome them. I do believe in integration, including in educational settings. However, considering the current situation with the Vietnamese community, more specifically in Brimbank, and the low rate of their children attending the kindergarten, I highly support this notice of motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Borg. Does anyone else wish to speak to this motion? All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. 13.3, public meetings. Notice of motion 21/23. Councillor Maria Kerr.
I move the motion as
Move the
per the shared screen.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder of the motion? Councillor Tarkos.
I second the motion as per shared screen.
Councillor Kerr, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We live in a free, democratic country where the citizens elect officials at all levels of government. The closest government to our residents is all of us sitting here today. Our residents want to ask various councillors, deputy mayor, mayor of their choice questions. Residents want to ask their own ward councillors about local ward issues, and at present, they can't. The only avenue they have is to submit questions prior to council meetings, which are drafted by officers for the mayor to read out of script. Residents are frustrated. They feel disconnected from councillors and just want honest answers. Residents just want to be heard. They want transparency and respect. Scripted answers doesn't wash with the community anymore, Mr. Mayor. We as elected councillors need to be more transparent, more accessible, and for our community to have the right to ask questions of councillors, Mr. Mayor. We should have public forum once a month for the community to ask these questions. And if you're thinking that I don't want to be asked questions, then you are wrong. I want to be able to answer any questions the community may have of me. And if I don't have the answer, I will take it on notice and follow up with the resident. That's the least I can do as an elected councillor who is paid by the community. And if you think this will not work, there are many councils that have been doing this for many years. We don't need to look far. Our neighbours in Moonee Valley have for many years been welcoming community input, questions, and even formed advisory groups. This is called transparency. This is called being open and accountable. This is called doing what we are paid to do by ratepayers. We do not want to descend to the dark days at Brimbank, where there was an iron veil of non-transparency, and in the end, that council was sacked. Yes, sacked. Our community is asking for this forum. Our community want to see the whites in our eyes when we are answering questions. Our community wants to see if councillors are truly understanding their concerns. They want to know which councillors are willing to be questioned, who is doing their reading, who is authentic, and our community just want to know and want an opportunity to have their say. So I will be supporting this community with this motion. For more access, openness, and transparency, I put it to you, Mr. Mayor, and my fellow councillors, do you support the community and transparency, or are you content to hide behind the walls of council, happy collecting our ratepayer-funded allowances without accountability and avoiding the community? I hope you can all join me in supporting this motion on behalf of every resident in Brimbank. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Tarkos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to commend Councillor Kerr on this important nom. Mr. Mayor, a well-managed council provides easy access to issues within the community with the aim of building policy through collaborative decisions. The bottom line is transparency and public engagement builds trust and a sense of cooperation and community. I support the idea of a public forum without scripts where we can act authentically, that is respectful and allows people to ask questions directly to us via in-person or via Zoom or email or whatever mode that is convenient and safe for them. I'm elected by my community to serve my community and not hide behind scripts or system-generated responses. This will help me understand my community's needs alongside with attending events, attending committee meetings where I listen to my community and collaborate on solutions to issues and problems. Getting elected to council is not an end in itself. You cannot be a voice for the people you represent unless you actively listen to what they say or need. In the words of Thomas Jefferson, quote, involving the public will ensure that their ideas and their concerns are thoroughly considered, resulting in better decisions, unquote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Does anyone else wish to? Councillor Borg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also would like to commend Councillor Kerr for this NOM. I remember when I was a candidate for to go for council, one of my goals was to help the community build a trusting relationship between council and the members of the community, and I wanted to build a bridge between the community and the local government. I feel very honored and privileged to be entrusted with this responsibility to give the to represent the community at local government level and to give the community a voice. And I am happy to do whatever I can to make to facilitate my role as a councillor and being there for the community to be heard and to represent them in the chamber. So I'm very much looking forward to this report and see in what ways we can improve on our relationship with the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Borg. Does anyone else wish to speak to this motion? Councillor David?
Just very briefly, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I do support the motion put forward by Councillor Kerr. It has to be very well prepared. We had them in years gone by. At times we had a couple of messy ones, but as I said, if he was prepared proper, I think it'd be a good idea, not just for the councillors concerned, but the residents of Brimbank. Yes, I support that.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor David. Does anyone else wish to speak to this motion? Councillor O'Reilly?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I strongly believe it would be valuable to have more ways to engage with the community, particularly people who wish to engage with us, whether online or face-to-face. I echo what has already been said by my colleagues, Councillor Kerr, Councillor Tarchos, Councillor Borg and Councillor David, and support Councillor Kerr's notice of motion to receive a report detailing how regular public forum meeting could be introduced at Brimbank City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. (13.4) Review of Kindergarten Central Registration and Enrolment Policy. Notice of motion 2022/23. Councillor Tarkos.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I move the motion as per shared screen.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder of the motion? Councillor Kerr.
I second the motion as per the shared screen. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tarkos, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This NOM was brought about from a significant number of women and men raising concerns within our community that they cannot get kindergarten places close to their homes. In one case, mothers returning to work said that they would need to drive up to 40 minutes in the morning traffic to get to a kindergarten, which would create high anxiety for the mother and child, compounding not only able to access a kindergarten in their own street, whereas they could access a kindergarten in their own street, which is only walking distance away. Add to this the announcement of free 3-year-old kindergarten, which is absolutely fantastic. But what it's also created is a huge demand in some areas to meet a very limited to diminishing pool of spots. So it's far more complicated than this, as I'm explaining it, but there are various criteria in the registration process and policy that have meant there is no guarantee in some cases of a place within your area street community. However, I know our council officers are working hard with all individual families to provide support around getting that place. This review that is in this notice of motion that I'm requesting is timely and important and will include consultation with families across Brimbank to benchmark and bring our processes in line with other municipalities that also consider proximity of kindergartens as one of the criteria. A lot of families and especially parents have said to me the importance of their children attending local kindergartens is that it builds a sense of community for them. It also creates friendships sometimes for life for some of the children and also with the mothers. They also creates a sense of their ease to get back to work where they can spend less time in traffic and quicker to get to work so that they can resume work without the stress and anxiety. It has built a lot of stress and anxiety within my own Keilor area, and it may not be the same for other areas of Brimbank. However, on an equity basis, all mothers who experience return to work, they can find this a very stressful time in itself, but to not be able to access kindergarten places within their proximity makes it even more stressful. So thank you for, and hopefully you can support this notice of motion for a review. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tarkos. Councillor Kerr, do you wish to speak to this motion?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think
Does
Councillor
anyone
Tarkos
else
covered
wish
it.
to speak to the motion? All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. 13.5, School Provision Planning in Derrimut. Notice of motion 23-23. Councillor Thomas O'Reilly. Do you wish to speak to the motion? Move
Yes.
the motion, thank you.
Yes, I'd like to move the motion as per the shared screen.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder of the motion?
Second, Mr Mayor.
Councillor David, second the motion. Councillor O'Reilly, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I'd like to speak to the motion. Families and young people in Derrimut face challenges in the distance that they must travel to attend a government secondary school, and therefore lack a convenient secondary schooling choices comparatively to students in other suburbs of Brimbank. Travel times for Derrimut students are far longer than students living elsewhere in Brimbank, and secondary schools are not easily accessible by walking or cycling. There is a need for a review of the planning provision of secondary schools in Derrimut to ensure that the predicted population projections are able to be accommodated within existing capacity of secondary schools. Previously in 2019, Brimbank Council commissioned a research report into secondary school demand and supply for Derrimut. A finding was that to get from Derrimut to Victoria University Secondary College, approximately 5 kilometres away on public transport, it can take over 1 hour. There are wait lists for school operated bus services between Derrimut and both government secondary schools. Many families rely on private transport due to these limitations. 2 different zones cut through Derrimut, with some families who are not in the Victoria University Secondary College zone now being told they can't attend that school. Sunshine College, also within the Derrimut suburb zoning, currently accepts students outside their zone. But if pressure on places increases in future, this will not be an option for those outside the zone. Residents of Derrimut should have equitable ease of access to public secondary education now and into the future. I ask my fellow councillors to support me in advocating for this education need. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Councillor David, do you wish to speak to this motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to say thank you to Councillor O'Reilly for bringing this up. That township or that subdivision of Derrimut, they just started to come out of the misery in many ways. At the very beginning, they suffered very, very badly as a community. They had to, kids going to school, they have to walk kilometers to go to school. No buses, no service at all. And that's bad. But lately they got something happening. They've got buses now. They've got other bits and pieces and services. And indeed, I think a high school or secondary school is required in that pocket. That service is needed very badly, in my opinion. And if we should support this notice of motion put forward by Councillor O'Reilly. It's needed badly, very badly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor David. Does anyone else wish to? Councillor Borg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to commend Councillor O'Reilly for putting forward this notice of motion. Obviously, there is a need for a secondary school in Derrimut for the reasons outlined by Councillor O'Reilly and Councillor David. But there is also another factor that perhaps has affected people, this more so since COVID, and this is financial stress and the high cost of living. Parents perhaps are more likely to send their children to a government school rather to a Catholic and a non-government school because of lack of affordability, which will put more pressure on the government system, education system. So I really would like to call upon the state government to take this notice of motion into the consideration and support our community in providing such a needy secondary school. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Borg. Does anyone else wish to speak to this motion? All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. Item 14, notices of rescission. There are no notices of rescission. Item 15, urgent business. CEO, is there any urgent business?
Mayor, there is one report that is appropriate for Council to consider admitting as urgent business. This report relates to work cover insurance premium.
Thank you, Madam CEO. Councillors, are there any questions for the CEO? May I have a mover of a procedural motion to admit this item of urgent business as per the shared screen? Councillor Kerr.
I move the motion as per the shared screen.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder of the motion?
I second the motion as per shared screen. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favour of the motion? The motion is carried. The motion, do I have a, would the CEO like to speak to the motion?
I think we need someone to move the motion.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
I did.
Through you, Chair. If you send it to Georgie, it's
Oh, okay.
business, so it's just not going to report.
So,
Get Georgie introduced.
Councillor Hill, sorry, Councillor Hill. Ms. Hill, would you like to speak to the report, thanks?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider authorising the CEO to make a payment of $3,453,360 for the work cover premium for 2023-24. Work cover insurance is compulsory for employers in Victoria who employ more than one employee. The state government announced significant changes to the work cover premium on the 1st of July this year, and the invoice received on the 17th of July. If endorsed, Council will receive a 5% discount for the early payment of this compulsory premium. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of the Director? No. Do I have a mover of the motion? Sorry, Councillor David.
Move the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Papalia?
Yes, I move the motion as per shared screen.
Thank you. Councillor David, would you like to speak to the motion?
Not really, Mr. Mayor, because I think the director put it as it is, so it's a must for us to do so. So I support the report. Thank you.
Councillor Papalia, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. Okay. Item 16, confidential business. There are 3 items of confidential business. May I have a mover of a motion to close the meeting in accordance with section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020 to members of the public for consideration of items 16.1, 16.2 and 16.3, which are being designated as confidential. Councillor Papalia?
I move the motion to move the items as confidential. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder of the motion? Councillor Borg?
I'll second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favour of the motion? Motion is carried. Go to there. Yep. Thank you to everyone who is currently viewing the live stream of this meeting. This meeting will now be closed to members of the public. We will reopen the meeting to the public after these items have been considered by council. This meeting is now closed to the public at 8:32. request Channel 31 to recommence recording the meeting. Thank you. I thank you again for your patience. I declare this meeting reopened at 9:13 p.m. Council has considered the confidential items and resolved that they will remain confidential at this stage. Thank you all for attending, for your interest in tonight's meeting. I declare this meeting closed at 9:14. I instruct Channel 31 to stop live streaming this meeting.